Have you ever woke up one day and wondered how your life came to be a certain way? It was like you went through a tornado, got spit out, and were left to put the pieces back together. You didn't know what you did that would have caused your life to be turned upside down. You woke up one day and everything seemed to be perfect. But then the next second, everything was gone. All that you had worked for. This is what Annabelle Green, the main character of Just Listen, was facing as the story begins. Annabelle Green used to be the girl who had everything. She was a model for local advertisements, just like her two older sisters, Kristen and Whitney, were. She had long, gorgeous blonde hair, bright blue eyes, and stood about 5'8". Annabelle and her family literally lived in a glass house because appearances were important to them. However, as anyone knows, looks can be deceiving. Now I'll read a part from the book to explain this. My father designed our house, and at the time it was the most modern one in the neighborhood. Everyone called it the glass house. Although it wasn't all glass, only the front. From upstairs you could see our entire downstairs. The living room split by the huge stone fireplace, the kitchen beyond, and past that the pool in our backyard. You could also see the stairs and part of the second floor. The doorways to my room and to Whitney's, and the landing between them, split by the chimney. The rest was tucked away behind, out of the sight, so while it seemed like you were seeing everything, you really weren't. Just bits and pieces that looked like a whole. The dining room was right at the front of the house, though, so when we ate dinner, we were always in full view. From my seat at the table, I could always see when cars were passing by slowly, the drivers glancing in at us for the perfect snapshot. A happy family seated around a hearty meal, but everyone knows looks can be deceiving. This is a common theme in Just Listen. Throughout the story, characters judge others and they are also judged themselves. At first glance, a character may seem one way, but the reader later learns that the character is complete opposite. This is really true in life. It's easy to judge others and assume things, but rarely that assumption is true. This is one way that Sarah Dessen connects to her readers. Continuing the story, Annabelle and her newfound best friend Sophie are very popular and inseparable. Sophie took the place of Annabelle's old friend Clark. Sophie was cruel and rude, but Annabelle stuck with her because with her, Annabelle was even more popular. Clark, however, was shy, thoughtful, a tomboy, had dark brown hair and dark brown eyes. Annabelle's friendship was short-lived. Sophie thought that she saw Annabelle sleeping around with her boyfriend. However, that was completely false. Will was the one who had raped Annabelle. Will, being deceiving that he is, tricked Sophie into believing that it was all Annabelle's fault. Sophie, thus, ruined Annabelle's reputation, and Annabelle, without Sophie, was left with no friends, no reputation, and everything that she had was gone. Annabelle didn't let anyone know her situation because she liked to keep things into herself. Annabelle never confided in anyone because Kristen was always bubbly, Whitney was shy, distant, and had recently become anorexic. She didn't want to upset her family even more, especially her mom, so she decided to keep things in and let things build up inside of her. After a difficult summer, Annabelle starts the new school year alone. Annabelle spends her lunch hours alone at the wall by herself. Owen Armstrong is also there, another loner of the school. He is just back from anger management classes after being kicked out the previous school year. Him and Annabelle soon become acquainted, and Owen teaches Annabelle about honesty. Owen had a new look on honesty and always looked to tell people the entire truth. Owen and Annabelle become connected through music. This is why I have an iPod here. Music can connect anyone miles away or two complete opposites. This is how Annabelle and Owen became to know each other. He also helps Annabelle to open up and express her true feelings to others, even if it might hurt. Annabelle doesn't like being completely honest because she is afraid it might upset them. This is another theme in Just Listen. Many teens and young adults today suffer from being dishonest. Sarah Dessen does a wonderful job of relating honesty to everyday life and experiences that young readers face. And she also shows the consequences of keeping things in to oneself and not letting others help you. I will read a part of the book that shows Sarah Dessen's visual writing and the consequences that Annabelle faces by keeping things in. Once outside, the cold air hit me like a smack, gravel crunching beneath my feet. As I left the building behind me, it was all too familiar. This bubbling up inside me, my throat burning. Never enough time to get away. I barely made it to my car before I was dropping to my knees, the water spilling to the ground as I smoothed my hair back with my hand. This time, though, as I felt my stomach clench, my body retch, nothing came up. All I could hear was the raspy sound of my own breathing, my heart thumping in my ears, and in the distance, barely audible but still somehow playing, music. As Owen pushes Annabelle outside her comfort zone, she slowly begins to change, discover her authentic identity, and maybe somehow she'll gain the courage to face what truly happened to her that tragic night. Will she ever confide in others and help come to face what struck her? Here's a part from the book. I walked across the living room to where my family was, gathered around the TV. No one saw me at first, and I just stood there for a second, looking at them all together. Finally, my mom turned her head, and I took in a breath, knowing that whatever I saw on her face, I could do this. I had to. "Annabelle," she said, and she smiled before moving over to make a place for me beside her. "Come join us." For a moment I hesitated, but then I looked at Whitney. She was waving at me, her expression serious. I thought of that night a year ago, and I pushed open the door, flipped a switch, exposing her to the light. What had happened to her had scared me to death, but she had survived it. So I kept my eyes on her as I crossed the space between and took my seat. My mother smiled at me again, and I felt a wave of sadness and fear come over me, knowing what I was about to do. "You about ready?" To find out if Annabelle ever comes forward and tells other people what happened to that night and brings Will into the spotlight, maybe he will be tried for the wrongful act that he did. Read Just Listen by Sarah Dessen.